Alright, this is an advanced tutorial that's going to discuss the practical use of triads. If you haven't learned the triads lesson that we have in Guitar Basics, this won't make any sense to you, so make sure you go look at that first. You can do this lesson on the acoustic like I am, or it's equally as effective to do it on an electric guitar if that's what you've got in your lap. So we're going to start by talking about the different triads we can find on this top string set for A's, D's, and E's. Because the jam-along track we're going to use is going to be a 1, 4, 5 in the key of A. The first chord is an A chord, the 4 is a D, and the 5 is an E. So in the key of A, if we're looking for A chords, this is a root A triad. Then we can also use this one, which is first inversion. Then we can use the second inversion, and we can even come up here for the root again. Like I said, if you haven't learned these triads yet, this isn't going to make any sense to you, so make sure you go learn those first. Then if we were looking at D chords, we've got this second inversion D triad, and then we've got the root, first inversion. We can come up here again for the second inversion. And if we're looking for E chords, we've got this first inversion right here, then we've got second inversion up here, we've got the root, and we can get up here for the first inversion again. And one thing when we're putting this into practice in the real world is we're going to want to find other notes that sound good. So if we're in the key of A, what other notes are in the scale, in the key of A scale, that we can do when we're improvising? So for example, on this root, that sounds good if we're just jamming, because this note is an F sharp and it's in the key of A scale. So that's fair game. If we're jamming on these triads, we can add that in if we want to, and if we get up here, that note's in the scale, and that note's in the scale, so those are all fair game. If we're up here, all of those are fair game. If you think about this, just take a second here and talk about a position 3 diatonic in the key of A. So we've got this is in the scale, this is in the scale, and this is all in the scale. So if we're on this triad, and we're in the key of A, that's all fair game if we're soloing. And that works for all of the different chords. If we're on a D chord, second inversion for example, if we're on the first inversion, or if we're on the root, all of that's fair game as long as the notes that we're playing are all in the key of A scale, which they are. So what we're going to do next is turn on the jam along track that uses A, D, and E chords, and we're just going to improvise. We're going to jam along with it, and don't get too focused in on exactly what I'm doing to where you're trying to mimic it, because I'm just improvising here, and that's what we're trying to get you to do. So instead of trying to copy me exactly, you can look at my techniques and the different shapes I'm using, but make up your own solo over this jam along track. This is just kind of a demonstration of what it can sound like. Alright, so loop that jam along track and play it back about 100 times. Keep playing it over and over, and you'll find some cool licks that you come up with all on your own that you can then use and incorporate into your playing. And also, you don't have to stay to just this string set that we used. You can use all the other triad sets on all the other strings that we learned too. And so it's a good thing when we're just starting to learn a new technique like this to stay confined to only triads and make sure we really have a comfortable grasp of the triads themselves. But eventually, when we're taking a real solo or an actual improvisation, when we're playing out or playing with the band, we're going to want to mix and match playing these triads along with using some scales. So since we're in the key of A, we can use things like, this is position 5 pentatonic, or we've got position 1, you can keep on going right up, position 2. And you can use position 3 and position 4 all the way up the neck. You can even use a diatonic scale or a blues scale if you'd like. So let's turn on the jam along track one more time, and I'll just demonstrate a couple ways that we can incorporate triads and scales into the same solo. Alright, so you get the idea. Make sure you're not spending too much time trying to mimic specifically what I did. I was just making that up off the top of my head, and the goal is for you to be able to do the same kinds of things. So to start, just make sure you got these triads and these scales firmly under your fingers, and then just take that background track and loop it over and over again hundreds of times, and start making up your own licks and your own riffs, and eventually you'll be surprised at what you can come up with, and then you can start incorporating that into your playing.